all the hard questions, so these are going to be a lot easier. We're halfway through this. You guys are doing great. Nathan, this question is for you. What is the number one threat to our economy and why?
Truthfully, it's the Federal Reserve. Going back to the previous question, would I support an audit of the Federal Reserve? Absolutely. I will sponsor the bill or co-author the bill. And since I've been in the state legislature, I've actually put forth resolutions for the state of Oklahoma to encourage our congressional delegation to do just that. So I've already actively been involved with that. The Federal Reserve was created to stop the boom and bust cycle of the free market. It was created back in the early 1900s. How many booms and busts have we had since then? They have not adequately done that because government overseers, government overlords cannot adequately determine the free market policies of individuals. They don't know what your shopping desires or needs are. They don't know how adequately businesses can or cannot expand or should expand. That should be left up to the free market. That's one of the greatest dangers we have because the Federal Reserve has already put us almost $20 trillion in debt. $20 trillion. That's $60,000 per citizen or $150,000 per taxpayer. That is unsustainable. We are close to the debt levels that Greece had. And that is all created by the Federal Reserve that keeps artificially low interest rates. Congressman Bridenstine has advocated for this for years. He's explained it even better than I can, but he's talked about this for years, about the cycle that we have where they let out these treasury bills, where they just print up the money. It's not just the money in your pockets that the federal government takes. They're borrowing money from China, they're borrowing money from Germany, they're borrowing money from overseas and printing money and putting us continually in debt. So we have to rein in our debt and we have to have a full audit of the Federal Reserve and eliminate them, go back to constitutional governance.
All right, Kevin. In your opinion, how do we stop the runaway spending in Washington, D.C.?
Well, I think the first thing you got to look at here is where's the money going? Do you all know that the federal government requires all of us in this room to live under certain accounting principles, but they don't. They have no idea where our money goes. All we ever see is how much money comes in, how much money goes out, and the difference is the deficit. And that's really about the extent of it. There's no one place you can go to see all of the numbers as you could with your businesses. Seems a little bit antiquated to me with all the technology we have today. That's first. How about a zero-based budgeting to actually go back and review where every tax dollar goes so that we can actually look at and move around numbers, or dollars rather, that don't need to be in a certain place. You know, when you have 21, just as an example, personal financial literacy, we have 21 different federal programs by the federal government teaching individuals personal financial literacy. Think about that, your federal government teaching about personal financial literacy. And we have 21 programs. Where in business would you continue a program that's failing miserably only to add another one on top of it to see if you can make the one that's failing better? So, I mean, we have this issue ongoing. Another issue is Obamacare. We clearly understand now it needs to be a full repeal. We voted 62 times in the House to repeal it. It's the only way we're going to get free market principles to give more choice and lower cost. We see that. We see it in our own local area here. If you go over to Servant Imaging, you get an MRI for $400, and somewhere else it's $3,000. So we see when you get actually you're involved personally, you can make a difference. I will tell you also, you know, going back to a couple of things you talked about, minimum wage. This edict's coming down. The minimum wage is something that, if you look today, St. Louis is actually rolling theirs back because they lost thousands of jobs. People are not moving to St. Louis to create jobs there. If you look at the Federal Reserve audit, you talked about that. I'm for auditing anybody that takes our money at the federal and the state level, even and including the Pentagon. And we need to have them audited because they're taking your income tax money and my income tax money, and we don't know where it's going. The people out on the front lines need to be treated better. We've got a $600 billion budget in the federal in the Pentagon. So I'm for all the audits.
All right, Andy. Many times lawmakers receive high-paying lobbyist jobs after they serve in Congress. Would you vote in favor of legislation that creates a lifetime ban on lawmakers becoming lobbyists?
I think I'd have to say yes. I think that's perfectly reasonable. I think that you are given positions of responsibility and authority that are unique in the affairs of man. So the idea of stepping away from that and not being able to profit off of that in that kind of capacity where you're influencing others that were in those seats, that makes sense to me. That's not to say that you can't still advise on policy or be somewhere involved in the policy arena. But yeah, the idea of just the circular door rotating and you going into the lobbyist circles, that doesn't resonate with me. Servant leadership resonates with me. Those that are serving for a season for the right reasons to represent their constituents, that's what resonates with me. And that's what we need. Our country faces real challenges. We are in a dark hole, and we need people to serve, and to serve well and for the right reasons, not for their own careers, but for their country and the communities they represent. Going back to the out-of-control spending in D.C., because it is out of control, it's irresponsible. It actually amounts to a moral failure. It comes to a national security threat for our country. It amounts to intergenerational theft. We're no kidding borrowing money from China, a group that does not have our concerns at heart, writing our kids' signatures on the checks, and paying for things that we really don't need today. And we do that year after year after year. I would be in favor of a balanced budget amendment. Why not? I want to make sure that we don't get into a roller coaster effect. That's not healthy. I like the steady hand on the wheel and thoughtful approaches to these things, but we have to take responsible positions that secure the things for our posterity, our freedoms, and our economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Danny, do you believe we need to reform the federal tax code? And if so, what would you propose?
Oh, we talked about this last night, and we ran in circles, and we almost got in fights over this. Yes, the federal tax code does need to be just totally overhauled and probably start over again. I think our tax code is the greatest example of when something gets so large, you lose absolute control over it. I've got to hire 3 different CPAs to take over and just prepare my individual taxes for myself and my businesses to balance them out because nobody understands it. And so we've developed a system that does not allow us as Americans to even know where our money goes. Taxes for us, just like any other business, any money you spend, taxes that you are paying every year should be an investment into a better country. It should be an investment into a more protected country, a more stable country. And so the investments that we're paying every April 15th, or I always file a extension, and so September 15th and October 15th, those taxes that I pay should be going into make America better. Or what was it the other guy said? Make America great again. And so our tax system doesn't allow us to do that. We can't really even tell how much taxes we're paying. And so I have talked through a fair tax system, a flat tax system. Right now, I know the border adjustment tax is under advisement. And I would love to be able to tell you that I have got this figured out and I know exactly what would be submitted. I love the idea that I believe Washington's put into play a couple years ago where they mailed out the taxes that they assumed the citizens were going to pay. They could sign them and send them back, and you didn't have to pay a consultant to create those. You just agreed with it and sent it back. Simpler taxes will produce, I think, a stronger economy for us.
Thank you, Danny. Tim, in order to strengthen the representation of state governments within Congress, do you believe it is necessary to reform the 17th Amendment so U.S. senators can once again be elected by state legislators instead of the popular vote?
You know, the framers of the Constitution believed that those who serve in the House and the Senate are citizen legislators. They are supposed to leave their jobs for a certain finite period of time while they will be serving the populace. That's kind of what we have to get back to. And we look at states' rights, the 10th Amendment. Don't forget this. When we came up with federalism, this delicate dance between the national government and state governments, we said that which is not delegated to the federal government is reserved to the states. That balance is way out of proportion, and we have to cure that by looking at the 10th Amendment. Now, I'm a constitutionalist, and what I mean by that is if you can't find authority for what the government is going to do in the Constitution, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. So when we're looking at amendments to the Constitution, there's a couple of different ways it can be done. There's talk of a constitutional convention right now. We would need 2/3 of the states to sign off on that, and then whatever they came up with for amendments would have to have 3/4 of the states' votes to pass that. But when we're looking at this, governance based on the Constitution is what makes us the freest nation in the world. Our Constitution has been copied, I believe, more than any other legal document ever presented. And so that shows you that the founders of this great country and the language that they put in there so that you have the balance of power is so very, very important to your freedoms. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay. At this point, what we're going to do is before we move to the questions from the audience, when we do move to the questions for the audience, each candidate will have 1 minute of response time, and we will pick the people by random who will ask the questions, and each candidate will get one of those. But before we do, I have 2 questions that everybody has been asking me about that I feel can receive a short answer, and I just want every single one of you to go down the line and answer these 2 questions. First one is, and we'll start with you, Senator Dom. If you were elected, would you join the Freedom Caucus? And the second question is, do you promise or pledge not to negatively campaign against your opponents?
Simple yes or no answers. Yes, I fully intend to be a member of the Freedom Caucus and work with them any way that I can. And secondly, yes, I've been through many campaigns and people have negatively attacked us and everything. That's part of the process. People lie about me all the time, but we always stay above board and we always stay honest and true, and so I will not be negative campaigning.
So the second question first will not be negative campaigning. The first question, I don't know when the race is going to be yet. If it's a year and a half from now, who knows if the Freedom Caucus is even going to be there to swear allegiance to a particular group? Who knows? I love the principles that the Freedom Caucus is about. I think actually President Trump actually likes the Freedom Caucus principles. They're actually wanting to get something done and find a solution. So, again, not knowing when this race is, like I said today, I love the Freedom Caucus principles, what they're about. If it's a year and a half from now, who even knows if they're going to be here or not? Maybe something completely different.
Okay, as far as the first question, I would be very receptive to caucusing with them. It's an invitation-only group, so it's a little preliminary for me to say, yep, I'm in. But yeah, so that's my answer to that. To the second one, we're going to be putting our best foot forward in this race. All we want to do is give people an option, and that's why I'm so grateful that you all have come out to kick the tires and get a sense of the candidates. And we're just going to try to present ourselves and give all of you a good option. Thank you.
That question was actually asked by Matt. He grabbed me last couple weeks ago and said, hey, are you going to join the Freedom Caucus? There is still so much that I, as a candidate, do not know. Again, what's the Freedom Caucus look like? Would they take somebody like me? I've reached out and tried to reach them. The NRCC has talked to me several times trying to get information about what they're about. And so that is a question that I can't answer now until I get more information. But I love what they stand for. I love that you always know where they're going to be. I love the fact that Representative Bridenstine, once he was elected, you never had to question where his vote was going to be. You could match it up to his principles. And I think the Freedom Caucus lines up with that as well, which lines up with my Judeo-Christian pastoral background that I have. As far as a positive, negative campaign, I see this race more as a golf course or a golf match than I do a football game. I don't think we line up against each other. I think we play the field. Our job is to put our best assets forward, let you see who we are, and let you make the decision on who you trust the most to go represent you in Washington.
Freedom Caucus, yes, I will listen to them. I will listen to all voices that need to be heard in Washington. That's what a citizen legislator needs to do. We need to stop the war of words that's going on right now and be able to negotiate and be a statesman. That's what I was my whole career, 28 years, a statesman for the people, looking at different issues and different sides in deciding what justice is. So yes, I will listen to the Freedom Caucus, but whether or not I'm jumping in right now to say I will join this group or that group, number one, I don't think that's appropriate, but number two, I will listen to each and every person to what they have to say is valuable. I believe I was the first candidate that said I would not go negative. Why? If I can't win your vote in the marketplace of ideas, then hire somebody else. But right now, I know these gentlemen are honorable men, and you will not hear anything negative come out of my camp or me against any one of them.
All right, everybody who is here now, we have a very unique opportunity for you. In this room, I believe, we have a future congressman. And you have the opportunity to ask him a question that best represents your values and what you're looking for. So we'll start with Senator Dom with a question. You back there with the teal shirt. And please say it loudly.
In 1986, Congress passed the National Vaccine Childhood Injury Act, which indemnified pharmaceutical companies from liability for injuries produced by their vaccines. Would you work to repeal that and to give liability back to companies who are causing injury to children and infants?
So the question is, in regards to vaccines, do you support repealing? Yes.
Can I repeat the question first? So if you didn't hear it, her question was, back in 1986, Congress passed legislation that exempts vaccine manufacturers from liability. It created a special court for children that are, or for families if their children are vaccine injured, or individuals that are vaccine injured, so that people can go before that special court, but there's absolutely no direct liability to those companies. So the question was, would you work to repeal that act passed in 1986? Is that correct? Did I sum it up? Okay, so to answer the question, yes, that is something that I've fought for here on the state level, is protections, because there is the possibility of vaccine injury. I've had parents stand in my office with young children who have suffered from adverse reactions to vaccines. Vaccines are a good positive thing for many people, just like other medical instruments. But, you know, some people have allergies to latex. They have allergies to insulin. They have allergies to other different things out there that might be lifesavers for someone else, but might be harmful to them. To exempt anyone from liability is inherently wrong, and Congress doesn't have the constitutional authority to do that anyways. So many of the things we've talked about today, Congress doesn't have the constitutional authority to be involved with. I would encourage you, if you didn't receive one of our pocket constitutions at the table, we have them in the back. Please grab a pocket constitution. I will fully stand for parental rights and uphold my oath to the Constitution. So yes, I absolutely will work to repeal that and restore liability across the board to everyone. Thank you.
All right, the next question is for Kevin Hearn. We got one back there. Yes, sir, in the red shirt.
What's your position on Israel, especially the one-state, two-state solution?
The question is, what is your position on Israel, the one state or two states?
Yeah, so I'm a member of AIPAC. I've been to several meetings. I've Skyped several people in Israel, have folks on my team that are from Israel. And one of the biggest things, you know, that, first of all, the Israelis love our relationship. They love our partnership. We give them roughly $3 billion a year in aid for the defense of Israel. We can go into all the reasons why we love Israel as a forward front of democracy in a place that's terribly, terribly bad. It's also very biblical, obviously, the chosen people. But as it gets into the one state, two state, one of the things that Benjamin Netanyahu has actually said, you know, he would consider looking at all options on the table as soon as Palestine quit talking about having martyrs for killing Jews and recognizing that there's the state of Israel at all. In talking to the folks that I'm talking with in Israel, there's a grave concern about removing the two-state solution because of who's in the country already, that you would open up possibly opportunities for there to be terrorism. Thanks.
All right, the next question is for Andy Coleman. And we have one question in the middle there. Yes, sir.
You've all talked about balancing the budget. A, do you agree with Speaker Ryan that there's no way to balance the budget unless you get Social Security and Medicare solvent? And if that's the case, how will you work with them to see that becomes a reality?
You can go ahead and repeat that one.
Okay, the question is about Social Security and entitlement spending and Speaker Ryan's position on how we have to go about fixing that and addressing that. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, he says there's no way
Okay.
with that ticking time bomb unless you address Social Security and Medicare because they are insolvent. How would you deal with that and work with it?
Okay. So my answer to that is I am a long-term thinker. I'm a structural thinker. Other countries like China think in terms of generations, and we're thinking in terms of election cycles. That's inappropriate. I do see this as a very serious threat to our economy as we look at the long range. And to address that, we do have to start to adjust where we're at. It's difficult. I don't want to put anybody in a situation as they're nearing retirement of having the rug pulled out from under them. But going back to servant leadership, I am willing, as part of my generation, to look at adjustments that we can make. Adjust those age limits, adjust the actual figures, and take a look at that as far as the long-term solvency of our economy. I think that's important for us to do. I think it would be a mistake for us not to do it, and the numbers are not lying. These aren't things that we're going to be able to avoid. We got to just address it head on and take a long-term approach.
You, Andy? Next question is for Danny. Sir in the back, in the white shirt. Yes, you.
What's the first and most important bill you would introduce to Congress?
Question is, what is the first and most important bill you would introduce to Congress?
I think we have got to attack, as a country, our correction facility crisis. We have got more people incarcerated than anywhere else in the world. And that affects both our economy, that affects our workforce. Currently in Oklahoma, the average skilled workforce member is 56 years old. And so as a country, that gets pushed off. But if we don't attack education, if we don't attack our correctional crisis in America, then we are never going to fix those things. So we've got to figure out a way to get more people back into the workforce, and that may be involved in training them while they're there. So I would be looking to present legislation on correcting the correctional facilities so that we can bring those people back into society as productive members to affect our economy, to perfect our, to improve our economy and improve our workforce.
The last question is for Tim Harris. All right. You, sir, in the red tie.
Mr. Harris, I know you've been a prosecutor, and I wonder why you're seeking a seat in Congress instead of the Justice Department, because they certainly need good people there.
Question is, as a past prosecutor, why are you seeking a seat in Congress?
Because I've never been a politician and I've always been a public servant. You have to run in a political world, but I've always had a servant's heart that wanted to be in public service. I can't stand on the sidelines, complain, wring my hands. This is a way to get on the field of play, to be part of the solution to the umbrella of problems that we face in this complex country. I'm not going there to retire there. I don't need a job. I'm going there not to be something, but to do something. And to do something for the people of the 1st District. And you know what? If you serve the people of the 1st District, I guarantee you it will serve all Americans. So although in times past I looked at the Department of Justice, I really feel a call in my life to serve the people of the 1st District now, and I want to be your next congressman. Thank you.
Okay, can you guys hear me? All right, we're good. Now what we're doing is we're coming to the close of our event here today, and I would like each candidate to give a closing remark, and you'll have 1 minute to do it. So Senator Dunn, we'll start with you.
Let me ask you all a rhetorical question. How many of you can think of at least one candidate who campaigned as a conservative, but once they were elected, they didn't vote that way? People are tired of that. People are tired of those that say one thing, but once they're elected, they don't keep their word. I think that's one reason that Trump was so successful, is because he's actually done what he said he was going to do. Even people that hated him now appreciate what he has done. But people are tired of that. Time and time again, we see candidates who have said one thing, but once elected, they haven't fulfilled what they said they were going to do. I'm ranked Oklahoma's most conservative state senator because I've done exactly what I said I was going to do. I have a proven, consistent voting record showing that I will stand on conservative principles. When other people will fall, I will stand strong. I've done that for the 5 years that I've been in the Senate, when I've consistently been ranked as the most conservative state senator. So what I would ask is that you look at my record, of what I have proven to do. If you want someone to be your next congressman who is conservative and proven to be consistently conservative, I ask for your support. I ask for your prayers. I ask you to get involved in this race and support us any way that you can. Thank you.
James 4:17 says, to know what needs to be done and not do it's a sin. My whole life has been in business, putting people to work. I've never been never been in political office, never ran for political office, but I helped a guy back when I first moved to Muskogee, Oklahoma, run for political office, and that was U.S. Senator Coburn. And so all of the values I learned about politics were from watching him and what he did in his work. You know, when you look at what's going on in America, it's really the economic engine has really been destroyed. You know, Mattis just presented to the Senate that no country has ever maintained its sovereignty if it couldn't maintain its military, and nobody's ever maintained their military if they couldn't get their fiscal house in order. Friends, this is really a devastating trend we're on right now, and it's continuing to double with every president. We've got to get engaged with our economic power and putting people back to work, getting people off the federal government. 73% of the new budget just presented was on mandatory spending, Medicare, Social Security, and the interest on the debt. Soon our interest will surpass our military spending. We've got to get our deficits in control and get our debt under control.
So my name's Andy Coleman, and I'm running for this seat because we need genuine servant leaders with real-world skill sets to step up and help our country during a very dark season. That's what I'm committed to do. That's what I'm going to be doing. A servant leader is first and foremost a servant. A servant is below those that they serve, and that is the approach I would take to this office. I am a constitutional conservative. I will fight to defend and restore our constitutional liberty, proper stewardship over our economy, and coherent national security and foreign policy. If you want to learn more, check out our website at andycoleman.org. And if this is the type of representation you want for you and your families, I would ask for your vote, your support, and your prayers. Thank you guys for coming out. Thank you, YBT.
My thought is that until our elected officials truly see themselves as servants of you, our government will never function as our founding fathers intended it. I've spent my entire career in different areas of service, from being a youth pastor, a volunteer wrestling coach in Arkansas, from working as a chaplain for the police and fire department, for working in the school systems as a volunteer educator, and now as a pastor. I believe that the job of a servant is to create opportunities for others to succeed. I think that's the job of a representative, that if the home state that you are representing, if I go to Washington and Oklahoma is not succeeding, then I am failing you. I would encourage you to find, out of the 5 of us up here, find somebody, support somebody, and then hold them accountable to make sure they are representing you the way you expect to be represented.
I started with this and I'll close with this. America. What does it mean to you and what do you want it to look like? I'm doing this because someday I'm going to pass a baton and it's going to go to a generation that comes behind me. What kind of Oklahoma and what kind of America are we passing on? The rule of law makes us the freest nation in the world. And yet I just read in the paper today in Berkeley, there was a peaceful assembly there that was attacked with guys with masks dressed in black. Freedom of assembly and freedom of speech in the United States of America is under attack. That's why I'm a constitutionalist, and we have to support our freedoms and our liberties, or like Ronald Reagan said, one day we will tell our children what it was like to be free in the United States of America. I will fight with my last dying breath for you, the citizens of the 1st District, to make sure that you are free, your kids are free, and your grandkids are free by upholding our Constitution, our safety, and free enterprise. God bless you all.